Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the philosophy of Nithyananda. It's a spiritual system that makes some pretty bold promises to completely dismantle your suffering, to let you rewrite your own reality, and maybe even unlock what it calls extraordinary powers. We're going to break down exactly what that means.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the core problem, which is described as a prison we build inside our own minds. Then, we'll get into the proposed solution, a technique called completion. After that, we'll explore the mindset you need to actually stay free. And finally, we'll look at the incredible new reality this path claims you can manifest.
Okay, let's dive right in. What's the fundamental problem this philosophy is trying to solve? Well, according to these teachings, the source of all our trouble isn't out there in the world. Nope, it's a lot closer to home. The core idea here is that pain isn't really about what happens to you, but what happens in you. It suggests we're living in a state of suffering that we ourselves create, built brick by brick from the stories we tell ourselves about our past.
And they give this internal barrier a name: incompletion. You can think of it like an old wound that never really healed, or a painful memory you keep carrying around. It's this baggage that acts like a wall, stopping you from ever really connecting with the here and now.
And this is where it gets tricky. These incompletions, they don't just stay as fuzzy memories. They start to harden into what the Source calls patterns, these false, limiting ideas about who we are. We start defining ourselves only by our failures, by our lowest moments, and we completely forget that we've had peaks too.
And that's really the trap, isn't it? We come up with this negative idea about ourselves, we repeat it in our heads like a broken record, and after a while, we completely forget that we were the ones who wrote the script in the first place. It just feels like a hard, unchangeable fact.
To really hammer this point home, the Source tells this perfect little story. It's about a tabloid journalist who, after he passes away, finds himself in hell. But somehow, he manages to talk his way into a 24-hour visit to heaven.
So he gets to heaven, and what does he do? He goes right back to his old tricks. He starts spreading a totally fake rumor that hell has just gotten a major upgrade. We're talking air conditioning, the works, and that they're desperately looking for a new editor for a brand new newspaper. He's hoping to trick some of heaven's journalists into leaving.
And here's the punchline. After hearing his own lie repeated back to him by others, the journalist starts to believe it. He actually turns to God and says, there must be some truth to it, and asks to go back to hell. He literally gets trapped in his own lie. So if the problem is a self-made mental prison, how on earth do you break out? Well, the philosophy lays out a very specific method, a practical, almost scientific technique for systematically tearing down those walls and rewriting your inner world.
Now, this process, called completion, isn't presented as some vague belief system. It's framed as a repeatable science. The whole point is to take that old baggage, that karma, and transform it into the wisdom and intelligence you can actually use to live your life fully. That wisdom is what's called dharma.
One of the main techniques is called samskara dahana kriya, which basically means a process for burning up painful memories. And as you can see, it's a very specific 5-step drill. You start by writing down and reliving past pains all by yourself. Then you do it with a mirror, and then you move to sharing them with someone else. And just as important, you listen to others share theirs. It's this whole cycle of internal confrontation and then external release.
So ultimately, what this all boils down to is a massive shift in perception. You stop seeing yourself and other people through the filter of past mistakes and hurts. Instead, you start seeing everyone, including yourself, through the lens of their future potential. It moves you from judgment to compassion.
Okay, so to really live from this new space of possibility, the teachings say you need to lock in 2 key virtues. And they have some, pretty unique definitions.
First up is integrity. But we're not just talking about being honest here. It's way deeper. It's about your word being your reality, a complete alignment between what you say and what you do. In fact, it's described as the very breath of life itself.
And then there's authenticity. And you got to listen to this definition because it's not what you'd expect. It's not just about being yourself. It's about actively stretching yourself to become the greatest version of you that other people can see. It's about living up to the highest potential others see in you, an idea called Enneakara. And the story they use to really drive this home is about a mythological figure named Nachiketha. He literally demands that his own father honor a careless promise, even when it means sending his own son to face the Lord of Death. It's held up as the absolute pinnacle of integrity.
All right, so you do the work. You live with integrity and authenticity. What happens next? Where does this path ultimately lead? Well, this is where things shift from the psychological to the, metaphysical.
The claim is that this path awakens something called Kundalini, which is defined as your total, untapped inner potential energy. And once that's unlocked, the source says it leads to the manifestation of Shaktis, or what are described as extraordinary, even supernatural powers.
And the claims are pretty extraordinary. We're talking about everything from bossing over reality to healing diseases to materializing objects from thin air. There's even a story in the source material about a guru who supposedly induced and survived 47 heart attacks right there on an ECG machine, all to demonstrate this power.
So you might be asking, why? Why make these huge claims? Well, according to the source, it's all about grabbing the attention of the scientific community. The idea is to present phenomena so undeniable that scientists have no choice but to expand their study beyond just the material world.
But this isn't just about individual powers. The vision is way bigger than that. The ultimate goal is societal, to revive what's called an enlightened civilization by building these modern, self-sustaining communities, these Veda agamic cities, that are literally built on these ancient spiritual principles.
Now, what's really interesting here is that this whole project of revival is framed within a story of conflict. The source claims these efforts are being actively attacked by what it describes as anti-Hindu elements and an international mafia of militant missionaries who want to stop this from happening. So when you strip it all away, this entire philosophy really boils down to one fundamental question for you. It leaves you with this choice. Are you going to keep living from the script written by your past, or are you going to start living from the possibility of your future?